So I want to come back to the problem we're working on. At the end of the video, I was talking about the fact that a lot of this depends on what kind of triangle we have. This is a CAB, and we have a small triangle, AOB. The small triangle is definitely isosceles because you have two radii, which means these two angles here are congruent, and I've marked here in green, the tick mark. If this triangle here is also isosceles, then this angle here and this angle here would be congruent. And if I would stick this triangle inside of here like this, then what I'm left with is going to be equal angles. But if you look at the picture closely, you can see that this angle here is definitely larger than this angle. But you got to be careful. Sometimes, even though they ask this question, sometimes you got to dig a little deeper to see whether or not are we working with two isosceles triangles. All right, last problem. So chords AC and DB intersect at E, and what they're asking you to do is list three pairs of angles that must be congruent. So this is the last problem. Turn the video off. Work with this either on your own or with a partner. Turn the video back on when you are ready to continue. So I'm really trying to emphasize the arcs here, and the question becomes: is there an inscribed angle? There are no central angles, since there's no angles coming in the center. Are there any inscribed angles that go to any of these arcs? And so A and B are two endpoints. Is there a third point that would be like the vertex of that arc? And that would be angle D. So this angle here is 60, for example, then this angle here would be 30. And again, looking at arc AB, angle C is also another example of an inscribed angle that goes to that same arc. So that angle there is also 30 degrees. Now, if I look at arc AFCD, for example, there is no third point that's created an angle with B and C, or sorry, C and D. If I look at D and A, there is no third point that's created an angle with D and A. In other words, we don't have an angle DCA. And the little black arc here, BC, again, we have 2 points. We need a third point on the circle, and again, there's no point on the circle that goes back to B and C. So we have one pair of inscribed angles that are the same. So angle ADB is congruent to angle ACB. They're congruent inscribed angles. We don't have any additional inscribes. We don't have any central angles. So we got to think about other angles that we have talked about in the past. So I'm hoping that you looked at these two intersecting segments here, chords, and when they intersect, the vertical angles are congruent. So angle DEA and angle CEB, they are congruent as vertical angles, and then these two angles, there are two angles in E, angle DCEC and angle AEB are also congruent as vertical angles. When you are talking about vertical angles, you have to understand that when two lines intersect, there are four possible angles. It didn't be very clear when you talk about vertical angles which pair of angles. Now, some of you, there was a proof in one of the problems. It asked you to determine what's missing. And some of you said, what's the angles at point E? Okay, which angles at point E? That point E on the smart board has four angles. So you have to get more information than just four angles, because if I choose the wrong two angles, they're not congruent unless the lines are perpendicular. All right, if you have any questions, we'll address those on Tuesday before your test. The test itself is about 10 questions long, so make sure you have a calculator and your notes and workbook ready to use on your